The defense attorney representing Idaho murder suspect Brian Kohberger represented Xana Kernodle's mother on several drug-related charges before recusing herself from Kernodle's most recent case in an unexpected turn of events. News Nation's Ashley Banfield spoke exclusively with Kara last night. Let's watch some of that.
I'm heartbroken because I trusted her. She pretended that she was wanting to help me, and to find that out that she's representing him, I can't even convey how betrayed I feel.
Have you had a chance to speak with her about this?
No, I haven't spoken with her. I found out through a friend who found it on Reddit.
We're joined by senior national correspondent at News Nation, Brian Entin, who's here to fill us in on this and more developments in the quadruple Idaho murder case. Brian, walk us through what we've learned. I know there's been a lot of updates on how much content or contact, at least one directional contact between Kohberger and the victims, that he had been in their DMs on Instagram, although maybe they hadn't seen them, and now this attorney wrinkle. Update us.
Yeah, the attorney situation is interesting. Basically, Xana Kernodle's mom, who you just saw there, who has had a history, which she talks about, of drug issues and has been in and out of jail and been arrested several times, had Ann Taylor, the public defender, as her lawyer. And it was apparently like they knew each other. They met many times. Xana's mom claims that Ann Taylor had power of attorney over her to help her get into rehab at one point. So it was sort of like an extensive relationship. And Ann Taylor is now the public defender for Brian Kohberger, which is just like kind of weird to wrap your mind around. So one of the victim's mom's public defender is now the public defender for the man accused of killing that woman, Xana, that young woman. So Xana's mom is not happy about it. Basically, the lawyer got off of her case so that she could take on Brian Kohberger's case, which really has that family not happy.
Well, because the implication is also, I mean, you would think that given that she had a previous relationship representing the mother, she would recuse herself from the murder case and keep representing the mother in her drug cases. It seems insult to injury to choose instead to represent the murderer. Do we know about whether or not the attorney had a choice in which of those cases she recused herself from?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we don't know, and we're hoping to find out, but it's difficult because of this really strict gag order right now involving the case. Like, the lawyers aren't allowed to talk at all, which in a way sort of puts her in an unfair position because she can't really respond to any of this, and we don't really know what happened behind the scenes. But we do know, there's not a lot of public defenders in Idaho, and there's not a lot that are death penalty certified in that area. So it would make sense for Ann Taylor to be on the Kohberger case because she is death penalty certified and has the experience to handle the case. But it's still really perplexing that this wouldn't be a conflict, especially if there's trial and Xana's mom has to testify. Like, how could Xana's mom's former lawyer, interview her on the witness stand? I think it's going to bring up all sorts of possible issues.
Yes, that was my question. So it sounds like this may have come about because of the geographic proximity. He's going to be tried in a certain place where she'd be the person you might call to say he needs a public defender, rather than her calling up and saying, going out of her way, I'm going to represent this guy who's halfway across the country. It's a where it's taking place sort of component to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it appears in one way. Again, we don't really have the public defender's side because she's not allowed to talk. So it does appear that there's limited resources in Idaho, especially when it would come to a death penalty case. But we don't really know how they're going to work around some of these issues now that she has this relationship with Xana's mom.
So tell us more about what we've learned with respect to contact, virtual contact, at least on social media, and anything else about the murderer, and the alleged murderer, and the victims.
Yeah. So again, with the gag order, we haven't gotten a ton of information. People magazine reported that Kohberger had direct messaged one of the victims through Instagram. Didn't say which victim that was, but that it may have gone into the unread folder. You know, like if you get a message from someone you don't follow, it goes into a separate folder and may not have been noticed by one of the victims. We haven't been able to get that reporting on our own. I've been really careful with the social media aspect just because when we first got the name Kohberger a little bit before it was released, I couldn't find really any social media for him. And then when the name came out, like literally within hours, there were all of these accounts that were apparently created by fake people. So I think with the social media element, like we just have to be careful and wait, just because there's a lot of people online that have sort of just like created these fake Brian Kohberger accounts.
There was some reporting earlier on that one of the victims believed that they had been stalked, was overheard talking in a shop about having a stalker. Do we know if there was any connection between the alleged perpetrator here and her belief that she was being tracked in that way?
Yeah, we don't know. And that was actually my reporting. We interviewed a vape shop manager who had interacted with the victims and Kaylee Gonzalez quite a number of times and heard them talk about this possible stalker who was following Kaylee. We haven't seen anything that specifically connects that to Brian Kohberger, but in the arrest affidavit, there is all of this evidence and cell phone data that shows that police believe Kohberger was around the house many, many times before the killing, sort of driving around. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was in fact following them around. But we haven't seen anything come out from police to actually connect him to like following. I mean, he was circling the house, they say, but we don't know that he was like following them, on campus or around downtown or anything like that.
Well, I also saw a report that he may have dined at a restaurant where Xana and Madison worked, and there's a possibility they would have waited on him.
Yeah, this was another report that came out that he went there to, he was vegan and that they had a vegan menu on the item and that he went to the Mad Greek restaurant, which is where some of the victims worked. But interestingly, again, that wasn't my reporting, so I can't talk too much about it. But the restaurant has now come out and said that is not true, that it was a former employee who said that, and that it's definitely not true that they apparently looked at the video. So, we don't really know for sure if that happened.
It seems like, obviously this is a huge national story, and based on what you just said, people who live in the town are kind of weighing in and potentially trying to become a part of that story. Can you help us get a sense of what the public reaction has been locally now that there is a suspect in hand, and what the atmosphere is like on campus in particular?
Yeah, I think there's definitely relief overall. The minute the arrest happened, you could just feel it in the town. So things definitely feel calmer there. I think the students feel safer walking around. But in terms of like some of these reports and the leaks that continue to come out, I think there's a little bit of frustration in the town. Like they just kind of want to be left alone a little bit right now, which I can totally get. I mean, we were camped out there for so long. And there's this preliminary hearing that's set for June, which we will get a lot more information then. And I think the people who live there, they're just hoping, like, can everybody just give us a break right now? Because, everybody is covering the story nationally, obviously, and really into it. But for the people who live there, it's like, this is their town. And they're not used to this kind of attention.
Yeah. For sure. Is there anything else that you think, being there, talking to people, following this more closely than, perhaps anybody else really in the country, they think people should know about this case? And generally speaking, being on kind of a crime beat, are there things that are still surprising you about this particular crime as compared to others that you might have covered?
Yeah, I mean, I think the gag order is really surprising. I've never really seen anything quite like it. I mean, I've seen gag orders before, but it's gotten stricter and stricter. That's something we haven't talked about yet. The judge had a gag order initially saying that none of the lawyers could talk, or the prosecution or defense or law enforcement, and then put out a new gag order saying not only can the lawyers not talk, but people representing the victims and basically anyone connected to the case can't talk, which I've never seen anything like that. There's this media coalition now that plans to fight that because now they're trying to silence people who, aren't even like lawyers in the courtroom, which is a little bit unheard of, I think. So that's surprising to me, and I think it'll be interesting to see the way that plays out.
Well, is there any justification given for why there's these gag orders in place?
I think that they're just hoping they really want a fair trial, which I think most people can understand, and they want to have a very tight case where, there's no reason that someone can come back and say, oh, this got leaked or that got leaked, and that's the reason that this shouldn't move forward. So in some ways, I think the intentions seem good. But, I think there's just questions about how far can a judge really go to keep everybody totally silent. And in some ways, I think it fuels leaks. Like you're hearing about some of these things coming out, which I think has the court, angry. I think that's actually why they pushed forward and made the gag order even more serious, like even more strict.
Yeah, I was wondering if there were some maybe jury selection implications, given that it's a smaller pool and it's such a big story. But regardless, thank you so much for all of your reporting on this.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll have to keep following the story, and we'll have more Rising for you right after this.